What's up, witches? It's me, Luna, and I have a reading for you this morning from one of the best goddess decks ever. This is the Goddess Oracle by Amy Sophia Marashinsky and Frana Janto, and you can find this pretty much anywhere. You can find it on Amazon, you can find used copies on A-Libris and A-Books, and it is widely available, and I highly, highly recommend it. So the reading that I did this morning really resonated for me on a personal level. But as I was going along, it was expanding, and I realized that it was also really resonating on a collective level. And recently, just at the end of March, Neptune moved into Aries, and it's really significant when the heavies, which are Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto, when they change sign because they are so slow. And Neptune went into Aries from its own sign, Pisces. Neptune is the inner, the deep, deep, deep inner, deep subconscious, unconscious spirit, certainly the internal. And moving into Aries, it brings the internal external, because Aries is all out there, right? All way out there. So it really isn't surprising that this reading resonated on the internal and the external at the same time. And perhaps on a broad level, that's what's going on with us right now, is we are having this, we're kind of being broken open, and well, let's go with the reading, and I'll continue with that. So the first card that came out was Artemis, and her subtitle is Selfhood. So right now we have a lot of issues of selfhood. And let me say too, just to acknowledge and validate, that we are all being traumatized on a daily basis. We are in the hands of a malignant narcissistic abuser, and this is what it feels like. You're constantly being gaslit and traumatized. And one of the hubs of this trauma is around selfhood. Selfhood as women, as members of LGBTQ plus, as people of color, all of those that are being persecuted right now. And that's not even, I don't even want to know what I want to say, but we are being persecuted. So much persecution going on right now. And also identity as whatever your nationality is. But this goes deeper than that. We are forced to look beyond nationality, because that's what's being shoved down our throats, right? To our own selfhood and what that's about. And you look at Artemis here, she's kneeling. She has her bow drawn. She's got her hawk and a deer and a rabbit, and the only thing we don't see is her hounds. But she's ready to shoot, anybody that impinges on her selfhood, anybody that would deny it to her, anyone that would denigrate her selfhood. And then look at what she's aiming at over here. We have Coatlique, and her subtitle is Grief. So we are experiencing a lot of grief around the trauma that is being aimed at our selfhood. The abuse that's being aimed at us and the trauma that we're experiencing because of it. So this is a call to really look at your grief and acknowledge your grief on a daily basis, because things are happening on a daily basis. And I will say, as I have always said, you decide how much you let in on a daily basis, and nobody's going to judge you for limiting your trauma from day to day. And then over here we have Hathor, which is pleasure. And so look at, we're pointed at the grief, but behind us here is pleasure. So one of the messages here is that it is up to us to remember that pleasure exists and to allow ourselves to feel it, whatever that is. The hot from the oven bran muffin that I just ate, great pleasure. Looking out into the woods and seeing the leaves coming out. Wonderful pleasure. Whatever it is you take pleasure in, we don't want to get so wrapped up in our grief that we forget to please ourselves, that we forget to take pleasure in this amazing creation that is Earth. And also, this looks at, we're trying to shoot down grief, but you can't. It's a thing. It's a thing that happens. It's part of the wheel. It's part of the wheel. And so when we get to that bottom, the grief must be felt. Grief is the other side of love. Love is a bonding. Love is not an emotion, it's a bonding. Pleasure is an emotion. Love is a bond. And you can tell this is true by the fact that we can be so pissed off at somebody and still love them. It doesn't disturb the bond. And when we lose that bond, grief is there to represent to us the depth of that bond, the quality of that bond. So we don't want to shoot grief down. And so, if we look at our selfhood, it's the bond with ourselves that they're trying to break us away from. And let's face it, the people that follow these fascist principles are absolutely divorced from themselves. They are distanced. They're not connected to their spirit in any way. So we need to be focused and make sure that we are feeling the grief as it comes, and also balancing that with the smaller pleasures so that we can remain in our body and have a reason to remain in our body. Then what was fun was that as I was reading, I think it was both Artemis and Quadlige, both of the cards mentioned Durga and boundaries. And so I was, cut shuffling the cards and splitting to pick one. And of course, I focused in, and the next one out was Durga. So there she is. She represents boundaries. And she also has a bow that's ready to fire. So Durga was a goddess that was called on to defeat a demon called Durga. And I don't remember what they said her name was at the time, but they called on her. She defeated this demon and took on his name. So Durga, she rides a tiger. As you could see, she's fierce. So she is here to help us to strengthen our boundaries. And look at how these bows and arrows are aimed at each other here. When we have those who would try to deny us our selfhood, we need to set boundaries and decide, again, how much we're going to let in. But then look on this side. We have Lakshmi, and she represents abundance. And I do want to read some of her entry. So she talks about living from abundance rather than scarcity, poverty. And we're talking about scarcity and poverty here as mindsets. Is your outlook of life one of never having enough rather than having your needs met? Let yourself open to the abundance, the bounty that exists in your world. Lakshmi says that abundance is hard to perceive if lack, poverty, and scarcity dominate your consciousness. The way to wholeness for you lies in opening to the flow of abundance in the universe and recognizing the abundance in your life. When you open to the flow, you become part of it and you draw it to you. When you become aware of the abundance in your life in all its forms, friendship, health, family, love, beauty, talent, humor, etc., you can call in more from a conscious place. Now, one of the arguments I have with that text is talking about calling in more, that we have this idea, I've talked about this before, we have this idea of abundance as more and more and more and more, which very easily flips into never enough, never enough. So I want to call abundance that sense of having enough. I mean, enough period, but enough and then some also. But I also want to step away from blaming the victim, because we have people who are confronted with scarcity and lack and poverty every single day through no fault of their own. It's not the way they're thinking that's causing them to live in these circumstances. They're living in a broken system that was set up to deny their selfhood and their right to have their needs met and have enough. So Lakshmi's coming up here to talk about what it means to have enough in your life. What does enough look like? And, we're in a capitalist society, we're constantly thinking about the next thing, what I need, what I want, the next PS2 that now is slowed, all of this acquisition and conspicuous consumption. And so we get caught in that, but I want to buy this. And shopping can be an addiction. It can be one of those pleasures that takes us away from our grief. So there's another thing, is we can indulge in pleasures that are meant to mask our grief and to shove it underground. And so Artemis is saying, no, when the grief is about your selfhood that you're losing, you have to aim at it. You have to look at it. You have to, look it head on, put it in your sights and feel it. So defining what is enough for us, and if you have to sit down and write dollars and cents, that's fine. But look at the connection here with Hathor and Lakshmi, pleasure and abundance. It's easier to feel that you have enough when you do take pleasure in the things that you do have. So whatever you have, if it's something that you've spent money on, if it's something you spend money on every month, a subscription or something, do you take pleasure from it? Is it giving you pleasure? And if it isn't giving you pleasure, then maybe it needs to get kicked out of the picture, making room for something else to come in, something that feels more abundant to come in, something that actually brings us pleasure. And then if I look at this side, the grief and boundaries, nobody can tell you what your grief is. Nobody can put any shoulds on your grief. It is intensely personal and absolutely personal. So there may be times when you need to draw a boundary in order to grieve, where, people, if you express to someone who might be judging you, don't express to that person. Find someone else that you can express your grief to, who knows how to listen, who knows how to let it be. Let you be in your grief, being who you are in your grief. So keeping your boundaries healthy there too. And here, we can look at, yes, how we can structure things so that the resources that we do have become more abundant for us. I don't need to be paying for this, this, and this. When things start to tighten up for us, I have crazy skills with handling very little money. I can make a penny scream for mercy. And I appreciate those skills, because when things get tight, I can go through and go, okay, we don't need this anymore. I don't need that subscription. I'm not going to do that. And then it frees up the resources that we do have so that we can get the food that we want, so that we can spend it on the things that really bring us pleasure day to day. And, that's what you can do too. Now, let's come down here, and we've got Sheila Nahig in all her in-your-face, off-putting glory. She's amazing. She stands for opening, and she used to be above church doors, and people would touch her vulva on the way in. So here's the gateway. She is the gateway to life. Every human being on this planet has to pass through this gateway, unless you were cesarean, but you're still coming from this general gateway. They have to cut a new gateway if that's the way you were born. That's not the point. Okay, back on track here. The opening of the gate between manifestation and unmanifestation. She sits at that gateway and she opens the door. So this is saying that why we're experiencing all this stuff right now is because we are standing at a gateway. No one can argue with the fact that so many things in our global culture are outworn, they are invalid, they are harmful, they are dysfunctional or non-functional. Dysfunction means it functions, but in a negative way. Non-functional means it just doesn't work at all. And we are confronting that. And we've known it for a long time, especially in the US. We have been so complacent for so long, and we are absolutely horrible at holding white people to account, particularly white men. But we're absolutely horrible about it. So we've known for a long, long time that something needs to change, and in a big way. And that's what Sheila Nahig is saying, is we are at that gate now. We are at that place where we're going to come out changed no matter what. Whether we want to or not, we are going to change. So this is talking about kind of the background of what we do personally in order to be ready for what we're going through collectively. And that is to prepare ourselves for the unknown. Prepare ourselves for the unknown. One of the reasons she's so scary is she's old. She's not a woman. Look at the difference here. She's not a woman that's here for a man's pleasure. If you look at Hathor, her abundant breasts, and you look at Lakshmi and that beautiful luscious belly, they are rich and juicy and sensual and certainly lovers of pleasure and abundance. But look at her. She's got 0 fucks left to give, y'all. There is the hag, the crone, and what's she doing? She is daring us. Are you brave enough to go through this gateway? And look at her. She's laughing. She's smiling. She's laughing. Because she sees us just wrestling with our own attachments and aversions. And she's like, if you'll just let go of that shit and laugh at the ridiculousness of it all, it's a huge preparation for walking through this gate. We see the yawning unknown. So I would say, as the collective, we do need to be strong in our individual selfhood, because the individuals are what make up the collective. And our collective is rich and diverse and various. And what a sad, sad world it would be if I didn't have, couldn't sit back and call up on YouTube all kinds of things that are just totally foreign to me and take great pleasure in seeing how other people do things or celebrate or speak or, diversity is one of the great pleasures of this life and the great abundance of this life. Abundance doesn't mean you have an endless supply of the same thing. It means that there's everything in balance and in plenty. So I hope this made sense to you. I hope this helps you somewhat on an individual basis. And it's just a big reminder that, if you're pining to go back to the old ways, if you're pining for things to be maybe even like they were in the Obama years, that, when things were good, were they? No, the corruption was still there, absolutely still there. And bless his heart, Barack was one of the ones that brought the racism to the forefront, didn't he? So it's time, Sheila Nahig says it's time to look forward. You don't go backwards through her gate. It's time to look forward because there is birth coming. But, to pass through that gateway, you have to confront what you fear. But she's the goddess too, and she loves you. It's her gateway you passed through. So let her smile at you. Do what you can today to be strong in who you are, even if you have to put boundaries around that, even if you have to now even hide that selfhood in order to keep yourself safe. That's another thing Durga is saying, is sometimes we do have to sort of sublimate our selfhood to be safe in whatever space we're in. So you can do that, just don't divorce yourself from that, right? And feeling our grief and our pleasure at the same time, keeping boundaries and structure, and being able to feel abundance within that, being able to feel enough and then some within that, and then knowing that we are standing at the gate. Nobody knows what's going to happen, but we're going to be here in our best selves as it happens. Okay, you guys, let me know what you think below. Let's have a conversation. I have a little surprise for you coming, so look forward to that soon. Until then, this is Luna. Blessed be.